tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, let's do it. Let's go inside the comments section where we find all kinds of shenanigans. So much. And actually, I think a career high percentage of comments I actually pulled from the Team 980's comment page. Our YouTube page is continuing to gain steam at the Team 980, where you can watch our show live, of course, every single day, all 3 hours. We also pull comments from my page at Craig Hoffman. We had Standig on yesterday, and this comment, I think, was really good on that video / that interview from Jacob Kemper, Jacob Kemper, 4086. Ben just summed up what I've been trying to figure out. The Monday after this draft is like a wake-up. And Ben talked about how he feels like since he started covering the team, really, but certainly since all the ownership stuff came down in July of 2020, so not even the ownership stuff, like the scandals and the post stories and all that kind of stuff, through the ownership change, through the sale, through the season, through the draft process, how he just was like, oh, I woke up Monday and was like, oh, I don't have that much to do. Just kind of a cool draft recap. And so Jacob says, the Monday after this draft is like a wake up. We've been not only bad, but the actual butt of every good NFL joke. We were the joke in the NFL in every way. Waking up on Monday was the first day I felt like a football fan who matters since about 1994. Snyder came 5 years later, but this started when Gibbs left and Jack, as in Jack Kent Cook, passed away. My son was born in 96. He has never felt this feeling we all feel right now. Players might not work out, whatever, it's football. But if things don't work, it won't be a joke. It will be football. That's 100% correct. It's pretty wild, and just to think, like, we haven't had a day since we started the show where it didn't feel like there was something looming. Like, we started the show in June of 22. We're coming up on 2 years, a month and a half from now, or 2 months from now. And we were in the middle of all that stuff. You know, one of the big topics we had is like the NFL needs to move on Snyder because this is insane. We had the hearings, the congressional stuff. Our first summer was, remember why this is on the board? Where'd it go?
I'm on a boat.
Yeah, where'd it go? Did I take it off?
Oh, no.
I think I might have taken it off because we don't need it anymore.
I guess so.
I think we took it off and we put on there. But we used to have the I'm on a boat song because Dan Snyder was on his boat avoiding a congressional subpoena. That was a story that we covered. And so it's truly wild. What we've been through, and just to wake up all of a sudden, and the pressure of the number 2 pick is like an enormous football story. And so none of that. All of a sudden the pick comes in. It's the guy that kind of most people agree was the right pick. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, cool. Okay, when's rookie minicamp? Cool. I thought it was really interesting, and it feels that way. And so for us, like, in a way, it's harder for us as the daily talk show world because we're like, oh, what are we going to talk about? And it's like, I don't know, the NBA playoffs. You got space to. We can talk about the Wizards head coaching search and draft. Like, we got space to. See what else we can talk about. But it's not, it's funny because throughout this process, Don Van Natta has become a great friend. And I'm always thrilled that we have him on the show, but there's very little chance it feels like that Don Van Natta is going to ruin my day or make my day, depending on the day and the story and how much else we had on the rundown and how hard we worked on it before we had to throw the whole thing out. It's great. It's truly great. Let's see. We talked about, obviously, the draft earlier in the week. Mal CR99 says, ideally, I would have liked to find more on the O-line, but with such a lot of holes to fill, I'm not too upset. The value is just not there to trade back up. to get one earlier, and the tackles a bit higher all seem to have the odd question mark over them. I talked about this earlier in the show, and I'm curious, as you've heard from Brandon Coleman and heard about Brandon Coleman this week, like, are you with me that, like, I'd rather have Brandon Coleman than some of the guys that, we were talking about pre-draft? Because if you tell me you got a guy who played tackle at a really high level, including for a national championship, participant team in 2022, he's got crazy athleticism. His body comp in terms of size, wingspan, all that kind of stuff is Trent Williams. So he's clearly got the size to play tackle. His raw athletic score is through the roof. And the only reason he played guard was because TCU had a bunch of other injuries and they needed him to, and he stepped up for his team and battled through a bunch of injuries to tough it out this year and figured out a way to give up, I think maybe he gave up a sack. Maybe give up 0 sacks this year. I just don't. Sounds like a great prospect to me.
Yeah, I mean, to only give up 3 sacks in your career at TCU is pretty good, but also just considering where we got him at 67 after having traded back to acquire 2 more players. I think you combine all of that. I think this is sort of kind of a steal, and that's not even including everything that you just mentioned about his raw athletic score and his footwork, his athleticism, his aggression, things of that nature.
Right, and that's the thing. So it's not just would you rather have him or would you rather have Patrick Paul or...
And Patrick Paul, isn't he a project to an extent?
Yeah,
he
or
still have to be
Kingsley,
coached up?
Kingsley Suamatia, all those guys are. Roger Rosengarten has a lower ceiling.
Yeah.
They're not that different as prospects. So would you rather have one of those guys? Do you feel so strong in your conviction about one of those guys that you'd rather have them than Mike Sainristil, Ben Sinnott, and Brandon Coleman?
Exactly.
No freaking way. And that's something that I talked about with a bunch of people kind of post-draft is, how could they let the Eagles go up and get Cooper DeJean? What are the chances that Cooper DeJean is more impactful to the Eagles than Ben Sinnott and Mike Sainristil for the Commanders?
Yep. And
Brandon Coleman. Maybe Coleman wasn't a part of that deal. There was another player that ultimately, they probably couldn't have gotten somewhere else in the draft. But that's the thing is, you wind up with multiple good players. And, the same thing is true to take it away from Washington, Philly and try to take some of the emotion out of it. There was a piece in The Athletic this morning from Mike Sando where he talked to a bunch of executives about every team's draft in the NFC. And they talked about the Cardinals. And one exec was like, I'd rather probably just have Will Anderson than the 5 players that the Cardinals got basically in exchange. And yeah, the trade didn't work out quite as much as we thought it would for Arizona because Houston was way better than we thought they would be this year. But I was talking about that quote with Logan this morning, and he's like, I wouldn't. He's like, and I love Will Anderson. But the chances that outside of a quarterback, obviously no one cares what Kansas City gave up for Mahomes. It wasn't enough. It's not possible to give up enough, right? If it's quarterback and the dude hits, different conversation. But outside of that, the chances that a single player can be as good value-wise and make up for multiple other players who are even 90% as good, it's just unlikely because of the way positional value works. So I'm quite excited about what they did, obviously, and from a process standpoint, very impressed. Tiger0366, who, and I felt like I had to read Tiger's comments because it was short. I'm not sure it totally makes sense. I might need some help here translating this out. But he or she, whoever Tiger is, typically leaves multiple paragraphs that are kind of nonsensical. But loyal watcher to the video. So Tiger, thanks so much for watching and commenting. Even though I definitely don't read your comments all the way through because they are nonsensical novels, except for this one. All right, so I would like you to answer the question. Is there a free agent offensive tackle that you would outbid all others for? It seems as though instead we get about 10 channels saying we ought to do this for Ayuk, who is not really a need. Or are we really going to develop the OTs we have picked up And will they be dominant? Or is OT a target for 2025? You know what that kind of sounds like, Ant? And I'm not trying to be like mean-spirited about this. It almost sounds like someone who maybe watches our videos translated, used like a Google translator, and the translator doesn't quite go back and forth.
Oh.
And if that's the case, I really appreciate all that effort.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to be mean. It's just like there seems to be a lot going on there. But the reason I picked it is because I do think that the 2025 part is a good question. So one, is there an offensive tackle that you would outbid all others for? I'm guessing you mean, like, would you just pay a bunch of money in free agency? No. And especially, we were talking about this before the show, right? I want Coleman getting every snap possible in minicamp, especially in OTAs. If he in minicamp struggles so mightily that you know he's not starting in 2024, and you might have to kick him inside to guard, and it's just like obvious, like, oh, this dude can't play tackle in the NFL, which would be a surprise to know that definitively that quickly, considering what he was in college, then maybe you go sign someone, and whether it's Bakhtiari or Andres Pete or DJ Humphries is still available, who played for Cliff, but he's coming off an ACL, so Corn Lucas would be your starter probably through like week 9 or 10 at the very least. You could do any of those things. But I would rather give Lucas and Coleman the snaps, knowing that Bakhtiari and Pete and all these guys are still out there. And if I need to sign one of them at the end of training camp or in the middle of training camp because the preseason games are not going well, then I can just sign them then, and I will have gotten my young players more reps, especially my young guy in Coleman. Corn, obviously a veteran. So that would be part one of that question. But it also is important to remember that you can't fix everything in 1 year. And so 2025, yeah, I would address tackle in 2025. And I'm either going to address left tackle because Coleman didn't work out, and I don't think he can be my guy, or I'm in a place where I have an elite tackle potentially on the board, or I'm probably addressing Wiley's spot in 2025. I just think play calling can help Wiley so much. He was just so overexposed last year. Like, Andrew Wiley is a perfectly average NFL tackle. You can definitely upgrade, but you're not dead in the water unless you drop your quarterback back at an unprecedented rate, and that quarterback has a propensity to hold the football, a la the 2023 Washington Commanders. And by the way, Wiley's a plus in the run game. So, run the football a little bit more, survive the year, let Jaden come along slowly, rely on your run game and your defense to be competitive. Know that you can use the play action and also some, like, you know, kind of one read type of go ball, slot fades, get some easy stuff based off of formation for him that also makes the blocking a whole lot easier. And then if you can upgrade on Wiley in 2025 and or figure out more of a franchise left tackle type in 2025, yes, I would do that. So hopefully Tiger0366, that answers your question.
Did he also mention Ayuk?
Oh, yeah. It seems, well, everyone, he says, we got 10 channels, talking about YouTube channels, saying we ought to do this or that for Ayuk, who is not really in need.
Okay.
Yeah, so I tend to agree that the Ayuk trade would be a mistake. I just think it's too much invested in one position. It's a bad resource management. But I'm also not anti-Ayuk because he would help their receiving core. Because he could be your X, move Terry to Z, and then John in the slot, or Terry's got some flexibility. Like, you could do a lot of different stuff. I mean, Ayuk can play out of the slot. And he's also best friends with Jaden Daniels. So, like, if you want to do that for your quarterback and get him his literal best friend, like, I'm not anti. But I definitely wouldn't want to give up what San Francisco wants. And I guarantee you, I know that Adam Peters knows what San Francisco wants for that. Last but not least, and our guy Marvin.
Oh my gosh. Did he leave a comment?
No.
Okay.
Just people commenting on his calls.
Okay, gotcha.
Multiple. So if you missed it earlier this week, Marvin from Landover called in, and he gave the Commanders a D- because he didn't like the Brandon Coleman pick and thought they should have taken a tackle higher, or traded back up into the first round. We had a good, spirited but good discussion about why Adam Peters, I think, operated in the way that he did, operating from a certain character bar, operating from a certain positional type of bar, player, schematic, and how all of a sudden some of the guys that he may have wanted, Marvin may have wanted, don't exactly fit with what Washington wants to do. And it didn't go great for Marvin in the comments the first time through. And then he called back. And yesterday, Ant, we learned that Marvin is a teacher, a math teacher, who doesn't really understand sample sizes, because he did say he tried to tell me, someone who was on the beat covering the team in the 2015 to 2020 range, that I don't remember our offensive line being that good. He's like, I don't know, maybe they were solid, but like I don't remember them being a top 10 line, which I hit him with a Chris Berman, I know, because I was there. Yeah, I hit him with that. And then I was like, Trent Williams, and he was like, well, I remember Trent getting beat on a 3rd and 8 and like pulled out one snap from one game in like 2016. At which point I was like, Marvin, what do you teach? And he said math. And I said, have you gotten to the lesson on sample sizes yet? As if one dude can't have a Hall of Famer never had a bad snap. Wild. So Marvin's big point was they have to do more to protect Jaden Daniels. And I thought this quote, or this comment from Jordan X. Williams was amazing. He goes, so Bengals should have never taken Burrow because they haven't been able to protect him. Got it. I wish I had thought of that one myself. That really takes the air out of the balloon. Just a... Right. Yeah, they definitely should not have taken Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Terrible idea. Call Me Aurelius says, Marvin sounds like the person in fantasy leagues who takes a kicker in the 3rd round.
Oh, my gosh.
JC Captain Chaos, I feel sorry for Marvin's students. I do, because we also talked about his grading rubric.
Really?
Yeah, because he was like, I was like, one thing being wrong seems pretty harsh, because he was like, I love every pick but this one. And by the way, he thinks he scouts offensive linemen better than Adam Peters, which is another part of Marvin's absolute hilarity.
Did he give the draft a D- to say he loves every pick?
Yeah, and I was like, dang, how do you grade your students? And so JC Captain Chaos said he feels bad for Marvin's students. There was a funny moment where I taught him Kingsley Suamatia's life story and why he might not have been on Washington's board. That seemed to hit Walter. He goes, Hoffman schooled him, because that really stunned. I used that one twice this week. We had Kevin earlier in the week. I meant to put that call up on YouTube too. Cut that one out, because we had a caller, Kevin, who did seem to realize mid-call that he was not is not a general manager. He's like, well, I'm not a GM. And I was like, yeah, believe it or not, I know. I enjoy the back and forth. It's fun.
Good calls, man.
But yeah. So that's never read the comments. You can leave yours, but just know other people are gonna leave theirs too. On YouTube at Greg Hoffman. I almost gave the phone number. That's not where you leave a comment. You can call the show, but it's not where you leave a comment. At Greg Hoffman, at the Team 980 on all our on-demand content. Really, really fun to go back and forth with everybody. And I'm glad y'all had as much fun with Marvin as I did.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.